welcome to the Monica Sanford Show. I am not Monica. I am her husband, David, your guest host today. And before I move on, just want to say it's Women's History Month, so please go out there and say something lovely about the beautiful women in your life. So the way I came to be the guest host was I was working out in the gym. Working out in my garage, and Monica walked out and she said, she was so excited, she said, Shannon Weber just said she would be on my podcast, and then she volunteered me that I was going to be the guest host. I said, well, why am I going to be the host? And she started crying and said, because Shannon's the baddest ass bitch I know, and I'll be crying the whole time. So that's why I'm here today. So, Shannon, I really didn't know that much about you. I met you a couple times.
Yes.
Really, all I knew was you got this lumberjack grip, and you, take me down every time we shake hands. I know you were injured in Iraq by an IED, and you own a dress shop here in the Pensacola area. I want to read you're featured in this book, The Girls Come Marching Home by Kirsten Homestead, and I want to read a little passage here before we introduce you to our audience.
All right.
The pressure plate designated as the rear tire on the passenger side rode over it. She never heard the blast from the IED that hit her truck. The explosion shook her vehicle and the one behind it, spraying parts of the truck everywhere. Franco was driving the truck behind Shannon, and he was certain the blast had killed her. There was no way she could have survived that explosion. When the smoke cleared, the back of Shannon's truck was missing. It had been blown off. The back tires had been shredded. Franco raced to Shannon's truck and found that her door had been blown off. Shannon was slumped over the metal ammo cans beside her. Her Kevlar had been blown off from the blast and was in the seat next to her. So that's very interesting, obviously, but it wasn't the worst day of your life up until that point, which is also very interesting. So Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. It's a pretty amazing opportunity. So I'm happy to share my story and talk about it all.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's get into it. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? What were you like as a kid?
All right, so I was born and raised in Hamilton, Ohio, small, quiet community. Grew up with a fairly normal childhood. My parents divorced when I was younger, so a lot of my time was spent one weekend with my dad, one weekend with my mom. I'm one of 5, so I'm placed strategically right there in the middle. So I never remember having a bad childhood. It was always a great time. As I got older, going back and forth between my mom and my dad's house, the custody struggles they sometimes had, the relationships I saw my mother in, things kind of shifted as I got older. I was an active kid. I was involved in sports, going through, middle school and high school. I was active in theater. I was, not the leader of my group, but somebody who just was down to do whatever and go with the flow.
So you were the kid that you would like your kids to play with now?
Yes, absolutely. The kid that gets everybody out and going and, hey, let's do this, let's do that. Didn't matter what it was, let's just go and do something. All right, let's go. I'm in. So, it's just, like I said, I never saw struggles until I got older, and then when I go back and I think about it, I'm like, oh, I guess, not everybody really peels back those layers. They just live their life.
Right.
I was talking to some ladies this past weekend who were kind of in the same boat as me. Never knew we were poor, but we were, Never knew my mom was, at the time, going through hardships until, we went back and kind of dissected those layers. Never knew we were really poor until I took a raw potato to school one day. And I was like, well, didn't really... was no big deal. This is just what was in my lunch bag, so I figured that's what I would eat, So it's different now. When you go back and look at things like that, you're like, it was just another day to me.
I think about it all the time. What's that saying? Youth is wasted on the young. And I go back and man, if I could change that, just realize what I was in at that moment, I would have reacted differently.
Absolutely.
So your parents were divorced, separated, but you actually went and lived with your father. So talk a little bit about why that happened.
So, again, I was super young when my parents divorced. So back then I didn't understand the weight of it. But as I was older, it was, you learn what divorce is and you're accustomed to, you stay with me during the week and then you stay with your dad on the weekends when you don't go to school.
Now, did you choose that or the courts chose that for you?
So my after they separated, my parents were pretty, I think for a while, amicable about it, and it was, the school district is good here. She's going to stay here and go to school, and then every other weekend we'll split. And at that time, it wasn't what it is now, right? So people are like, I guess now we do 7 days on, 7 days off. I couldn't imagine doing that now. Back 25 years ago, it was 1 weekend on, 1 weekend off, 1 weekend on, 1 weekend off. So I would go spend the weekends with my dad. And then it's crazy, too, because I literally would, when my dad would piss me off, I'd be like, screw you, I'm going to go live with Mom. And then I'd tell my mom, I want to come live with you.
One against the other.
Exactly.
So your mother was in an abusive relationship with a man. Kind of talk about, at the time, what you knew about what was going on in her life.
So when I was younger, I would say 4th, 5th grade is when I really started to see it. And that was pre who she was with, before anything crazy happened. But, I had seen my mom go through relationships that as I was older, I was like, man, he talked to her like she was a piece of shit.
Even at that age, you
Even
knew
at
this
that
wasn't
age,
right.
I knew it wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, is this how we treat women? And I had heard my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt speak about how they were treated by their husbands, and nothing made sense. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, leave.
Treat her like a lady, right?
Exactly.
And that was
But it was
happening.
never. It was either my aunt got slapped around, my mom got slapped around. And as a younger girl seeing that, all I cared about was tell him to leave, tell him to leave.
Right.
Well, then it became the circle of, I'm so sorry. I'm
So you said you had 4 siblings, 5 siblings?
Yeah, a mix
There's
of
5 of you?
5 of us total.
So
Now-
who lived with who? Like, was some living with your mom full-time or?
So it was, I only have one real brother, and that was my brother who was in the service as well.
Right.
I have 3
We say Marine Corps, not service.
Marine
And
Corps.
people say, I was in the service. I'm like, you weren't in the Marine Corps then.
Right. My stepbrother, stepsisters were with my dad's side. So, my dad had married a woman who had a son at the time, and then
Okay.
they had 2 kids.
So the whole, like, mix of
Exactly.
step this, step
All
that.
together, I'm one of 5.
Oh, okay. But you have one full of blood.
One full blood
Okay.
sibling who was there with me at the time with my mother, and he was just kind of he was a boy, so he didn't see what I saw, and he didn't.
Right.
To
He
him,
processed it differently than you processed it.
1,000,000%.
Right.
Yeah, to him it was not that it was not forgotten, but it was just like, I mean,
This is how it is.
exactly.
Right.
And it was the same thing with my mom, I think, for a while, too. It was, I'm a grown-ass woman. If I choose to stay, I choose to stay, and you don't get to say anything about that. So it was one of those things that I ultimately came to be like, so you're okay. What you're telling me is that you're okay with it, and it's okay.
Which leads us to the next thing, the tragedy in your life.
Yes.
So you get the call, your mother's been shot. Take us through that day.
So I had spent the day, June 9th, 1998. I had a friend who had a graduation party. I stopped by work to see some friends. I was on my way home, ran out of gas. I think I had just gotten like my first flip phone, so I called my dad and I'm like, hey, I'm out of gas. And I get the whole, what the fuck? What, be responsible. So he came and picked me up, took me home, and we were sitting at home and the phone rang, and it was my brother, and he called and he was like, Shannon, put Dad on the phone. Frankie showed up at our work, and,
Frankie was your
Frankie
mother.
was my mother's ex, who on Mother's Day, so about 3 weeks prior, had separated herself, finally packed her shit, and was going to get away, which was years and years of
She
just
probably left him many times, right? So this was kind of just another one.
Right. You know, it had been, I'm going to stay with my mom for the night. Never, I'm done. I'm packing up and I'm leaving. And he wasn't there for it, so I think that kind of just made the situation a lot heavier than what it was. So when my brother had called, he had said, you know, Frankie showed up at work, and there was a little car chase that ensued in that industrial area. My mom was the first car. My brother was behind her because they were working at the same facility at the time. My brother was working in a pharmaceutical company. My mom was the HR rep. So, you know, they showed up at the same time but in different vehicles. So my brother had said, get in the car and I'm going to follow you. And Frankie followed her. So they're going down this industrial place just trying to get to the main road. And I think at that time, you know, my brother was like, I don't even know why she turned up the road she did, but it was a dead end. Mm-hmm. So essentially, Frankie was the last car. He pinned her in, and as soon as she got out of her car, and I don't know at that time if it was to approach him and be like, what the hell's going on? Like, why are you here? My brother got out of the car, and Frankie, he said, immediately went to his trunk, popped the trunk and pulled out a 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun and pointed it at my brother and said, if you get in my way or try anything, I will kill you.
And he's how old, your brother?
He was, at that time, he was born in 79, so he was 18.
So he's still just a kid, and here's
still
this
just a kid.
grown-ass man.
Exactly. With, you know, and what do? You know what I mean?
I'm sure he's gone over that every second of every day since that day.
1 million times.
Right.
What had I reacted? Would I be here?
Yeah.
Would Mom still be here?
They'd probably both be dead.
Exactly. So at that moment, you know, he said at that time, there were people coming out of their workplaces. So in an industrial park, right, you think like not a lot of people would saw that, but all these roll-up doors.
But he grabbed her, right, and put her in the car.
He did. No, he had, at that point, Justin, you know, I think he had just kind of...
the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he grabbed her, put her in the car.
Grabbed her, put her in the car, and Justin had ran. And I think, like, the local news station had the 911 call. Mm-hmm. You know, hey, my mom's ex took her with a gun. We need help. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he gets her in the car, and they drive off. And my brother's just reeling like...
Right.
What the fuck do I do now?
So you get that call that she's missing, or he's grabbed her. That's all you know at that point.
We knew nothing other than that.
So all of you come together at some point.
We come together.
The cops.
The cops are there. There are helicopters. There are sharpshooter snipers on the buildings. They have canine dogs. They have news stations. There are people everywhere. And at this time, they have this command post set up. And I have, you know what I mean? I'm 17 years old. I have no idea what the hell's going on. All I know is that my mom is gone, and we've not been told a thing yet. It was me, my dad, and my brother standing there, and there's a detective that approaches us.
So looking back, during this period, if you can remember, were you thinking he's killed her? Or were you thinking there's hope? Like, what was kind of your emotion at that point?
I had hope. Hope. And I remember it was crazy how, I still remember how pink and blue the sky was that night. Just kind of surreal. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing the things you remember during tragedy.
Yeah, the backdrop with all these other, you know, huge lights, helicopters, just chaos going on. And yet I was standing there as a 17-year-old like, it's going to be okay, right? No news is good news is what I was thinking to myself. We haven't heard anything yet, so I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be smart. He's not going to be stupid. Mm-hmm. He's going to know if he does something stupid, he's going to get caught.
Right.
And it's going to go sideways for him.
So somebody comes and tells you what?
Somebody comes and says, listen, we can't take a good shot. We have heard shots, but we can't make entrance into the woods yet for our officer safety.
So he was just there in the woods. He didn't put her in the car. He took her in the woods.
Well, he had put her in the car, driven to the end of the street.
Oh, okay.
And at the end of the street where there were apartment buildings, there was woods. So to him, that was the only escape because he knew, I think he knew at that point, if I hit to the main roads, somebody's going to either figure out what kind of car I'm driving, and then I'm going to get caught. So he took her into the woods, and at that point, nobody knew anything. You know,
somebody comes to you and tells you your mother was murdered.
And at that point, I didn't want to believe it. You know, I had
We talked, was it the next day, a couple
No,
hours?
it had been a couple hours.
Did it seem like it was forever?
Oh God,
or
it
did
seemed like it was just days and
Right.
days. Like literally in that time frame,
Right.
every second crawled like nothing. So when somebody says that, you're like, no, you said that you couldn't make entrance yet
Wow.
and confirm.
I got to tell you. So I read the book. I read the story. Monica told me you and I had exchanged a few emails on this.
Yeah.
And sitting here hearing it, I just get chill bumps and would just want to walk over there and hug you. I just cannot imagine. You know, I lost my dad in 2000, talking about looking back and reflecting.
Right.
I lost my dad in 2005 to cancer, but I was there when he passed away,
Sure.
that whole thing. And I've kind of processed that over the last almost 2 decades, and, well, it was 2004. And I'm like, why does it still hurt? And the feng shui in me is, well, because his energy is not here around me.
Sure,
That's the
absolutely.
feng shui. But the practical side of that is he didn't get to see my son write a book, publish a book. My daughter's about to graduate law school. Monica's about to be a doctorate of nursing, and he's not here to share those memories. So it's been, over 2 decades.
Yeah.
So how has your processing of that whole time changed, if any, over that,
Gosh,
over that period?
I'd like to think it's gotten better, but I think when you have someone in your life that holds that much weight, like a father for you or a mother for me, it's hard to ever really stop grieving, because every time you think of this major accomplishment or something in life that you've
not
done,
there.
she's not there.
Right.
And everybody says, oh, well, she's watching over you. Yeah, but she's not here.
Right.
She's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The spiritual
Right.
side is very different.
Right.
Like, yeah, she's watching over me, and she sees that, I got married and I had kids and I went, into the Marine Corps, and I
not
have.
the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
She didn't get to zip up my wedding dress. She wasn't
Right.
there when my babies were born. So, it's different. And I
Yes.
think even now, almost 2 decades later, there are still wins that I have that I just want to be like, Mom, and she's not there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't think that's ever going to change. I'll never, ever forget that day. I could sit here and talk for hours about, I could tell you verbatim what I was wearing that day, what perfume I had on that day, who I saw that day, just every single moment. And I don't think I can do that with really any other part of my life than that, because that moment held so much weight.
Right.
And was such, and never saw it coming. Nobody ever saw it coming.
Right.
You like to think.
You never think that's what's going to
No,
happen. Even when it
no.
was happening, you're not thinking,
Right.
this is going to happen.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
think, well, he could do something stupid, but he's not going to.
Yeah. So is he
So
get the
he-
death penalty?
So it
what happened to
was.
him?
So it was a
I don't want to
death.
spend a lot of time on him because
No.
fuck him. But
Yeah,
anyway,
right. Exactly. It was a death penalty.
Pardon my language.
It was a death penalty case.
Mm-hmm.
So he started with plea of insanity.
Of course.
Death penalty was on the table, but after, and I'm going to be full disclosure, I wanted death penalty. I wanted him to fucking die. I wanted, even though it wouldn't be the same, right? But I wanted to, for me, it was, you get what you give. You know what I mean? And it's so hard for me to not, everybody's like, well, death penalty is a pretty hard, I don't care. I don't care. It's me, and it's my choice to have that opinion. So he is at the London Correctional Institution, and he's there. I still look up his picture. I could recite his inmate number, and I still look to see what his status is. No parole. There were 3 separate charges when when everything was said and done, but he will die in jail. So, and I'm.
Well, I don't want to say you're coping with it well, but you've learned how to cope.
Yes, yeah.
But you were 17 years old right when this happened.
Yes.
You're going into your senior year of high school. You didn't cope really well.
No, God, no.
So let's talk about what happened there.
So, the summer of my senior year, my mom was murdered on June 9th, so I had the entire summer to just cope.
Right.
And
too much time on your hands just to think about it.
Way too much time.
Right.
And I couldn't say if I was in school then it would have been the same either. I mean, full disclosure. So, the first few weeks, it was almost 2 weeks before we got my mom's body and could have the service and do everything like that because of the full investigation and the weight of what happened. But I think I spent the first month of just kind of like still in shock, like, what do I do? And then it became summer's over, my senior year starting. And I'll never forget walking into the first day of school my senior year, how I literally felt like I was the only one in that school. And every single set of eyes were on me, from teachers to students, everybody.
Nobody knows how to react. Like, what do you do?
Not a soul knew. They knew, but like, what do you say?
Right.
Nobody knew what to say. Hey girl, sorry.
Like not saying something
Right,
almost as bad
exactly.
as saying something.
Right,
so-
exactly. I couldn't tell you how many times I heard the word I'm sorry. And I get it because that's our first go-to. Like,
Right.
the only way to show that I care or I'm sympathetic is to be like, I'm so sorry for your loss. So, senior
So
year.
you're already thinking about it constantly, and now people are
Absolutely.
just reminding you, just piling on.
It's a
and
constant reminder, not to forget the fact that my senior year we spent in court almost 3 times a week on
Right.
on the regular, going back and forth with everything that was the ultimate factor.
Right.
So my senior year, I was very involved in theater. I worked after school, but I also partied like no other.
Party is in.
Party, drugs, alcohol, and that was just kind of the beginning, right? Like
So drugs, like what, like Tylenol? Or
Right,
like,
right, yeah. So
marijuana?
marijuana was my friend, ecstasy was my friend, acid was my friend, and listen, it was a lot safer than it is now. I'm sure I wouldn't know, but back then it was like no questions asked. We could get it very easily, and it was easy to come by.
Around 20 minutes.
So you graduate high school, you go through, and you just keep this pattern of drugs.
Yes, graduated from high school. Even high school, I immediately went to a college and declared a major. I had no idea what I had no idea what it was. I majored in occupational therapy. Then I didn't even know. I just wanted to get away. And me getting away was going to college and doing the same thing.
So you're into drugs. What are the drugs doing for you? How does that help you cope? Does it?
It didn't
Made
help
no
me cope at
difference.
all. It was just numbing the pain and just stilling my mind.
Right.
Because even then.
So it wasn't like I do these drugs, so now I don't have that weight of my mom on me. It didn't.
Right. It was just give me a moment to breathe. You know what I mean? Not to think. Because even at that age, I was still, going through my senior year, graduating, doing all these great things.
Right.
It's still there. So I needed to get away from that. And the only way to do that was to remove myself and remove my mind. And that was whatever I could get my hands on.
So at some point, you're like, hey, let me join the Marines.
Yes.
Why the Marines?
So my brother was a Marine. Of course, to us, is a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. But he had, before my mom was murdered, he had already had a contract. And so due to the circumstances, and he was a key witness, they had to push back his time. So he was a reservist out of Dayton, Ohio. He had been activated. And honestly, he graduated in 97, I was 99. So we were, separated. He had moved on. I was the only one living at home. So when he went to boot camp, we had gone to see him graduate. But it was literally, he went on and did his thing. Deployment, on the initial push to Fallujah, he was there.
So you came home in those dress blues. You're like, that's pretty cool. I want to be
Yeah,
that, right?
it was amazing. But yet we never. When he came back, I was not at the point where I was ready to join the Marine Corps. I was just like, oh, this is badass. You know what I mean? Like, this is cool. My brother's a Marine. It's awesome. So when I got to a point in my life where there was no escape and I needed the discipline and the structure, I didn't even think about Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy. Like, there was no other option. It was Marines or nothing.
Of course.
Right, naturally. You want the best, you go for the best. So I walked into a recruiter's office, and I think I told my dad and my brother, I was like, hey, I'm going to join the Marines. And they were like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, do whatever. But I don't think it was held at the weight that they thought it was going to be at.
Right.
You know.
So you wanted to get away from this because you know this is a dead end. You
Super
wanted to
dead
go in
end.
the Marine Corps. Everybody says the Marine Corps changes you. Did it change you?
Oh, for sure. Without hesitation, I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really started in boot camp because you know and I know every single day of those 13 weeks is literally beating you down to nothing and clearing your brain.
The sand pit is a great motivator.
That's exactly.
Isn't it?
The sand pit and the sand fleas and the quarterdeck and everything was a motivator.
Well, when I went through Paris Island, I was expecting Full Metal Jacket. It wasn't quite Full Metal Jacket,
Right.
though. It was a little bit kinder, gentler, and I went through in 85, but you went a couple of decades later. Was it difficult for you, the physical part?
The physical aspect was not difficult. I did have a little bit of time to prepare myself for that. Now, was I at the prime shape of my life? Absolutely not, without a shadow of a doubt. But, I think going in, it was, at that point in time, I needed to do something and submerge myself in something that was greater than me and that I knew eventually would be greater than me.
So Shannon is fixed now, so to speak. So you still have this weight on you because
Right.
it never leaves. But
Never
now you
leaves.
have this dedication and purpose, something bigger than Shannon to think about.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we came to. It was I literally needed to break myself down to nothing and rebuild the purpose that I felt I needed in my life.
And did that happen?
Absolutely. And I was older, don't get me wrong.
I need you on a poster and a commercial for the Marine Corps.
Listen, absolutely not.
You can become that.
That's right, yeah. I mean, the cover of a book, I think, is more than enough for me.
So then you become they make you a military policeman. Did you have a guaranteed contract for that, or they gave you that when you got in
So
there?
when they listed out the jobs, I literally was like, that looks good, I'll do that.
So I got to ask you, okay, I've always wondered this. So you're an enlisted military policeman and you stop an officer. What is that like?
Listen, we never pull over with the intent of, oh, this is officer, this
Of
is
course you
enlisted.
don't.
Right.
Of course not.
We're not flagging anybody
Of
down.
course you
right.
don't.
This is, we got to have that probability there. So probable cause, we know what we're doing. It's not easy, you know what I mean? Because it was always, you always give a courtesy. Do we, right?
Hi, I'm Lance Corporal
Exactly, sir.
Colonel.
Exactly. After we render that salute, can I have your license, registration, proof of insurance? So at that point, we always said, and we were always directed to, before you get out of your patrol vehicle, in your mind, are you writing a citation? Are you giving a written warning? Are you giving a verbal warning? So
it's something you were aware of, but it wasn't like
absolutely.
this,
Right.
I'm going to pass out.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's one of those things that you were trained to do a job.
Right.
And just because I'm enlisted and, said officer, committed a traffic violation doesn't make that different. But obviously we had to proceed lightly.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking you said, we don't really target officers. Okay, I got
Right.
it. Right, gotcha.
We
Okay.
got this, right.
Okay, so you go to Iraq as a military policeman.
Yes.
So what is your mission, the MP mission in Iraq when you get there?
So primary mission is to provide security for explosive ordnance disposal. So we would get 9 lines that would come in, either weapons caches.
My idea is here, you come and you block traffic.
Exactly.
Secure the areas, we say in the
Yes.
police world, I guess.
Yes, EOD comes in, makes sure that IED is no longer live. They do what they need to do, clear the scene, provide security, and then we roll back to base. And anyone who's not familiar with that time, explosive ordnance disposal had a bounty on their head, and so we're rolling, 6D plus EOD. They're trying to figure out who's who at that time.
Right.
Because then it's completely different than, things have changed, right? Because before they had cell phones that they would use to detonate IEDs.
Right.
Then they moved on to pressure plates. Then it was, there's a million different ways that it went. So
Yeah, there's a reason they get extra pay for doing that because it's
Absolutely.
a hell of a job.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's move to the day you're out doing your thing and you get hit by the IED.
So this was after we picked up a secondary mission. We were tasked with providing route security for convoys that were moving supplies and gear towards other bases. So this was, no different. Like, hey, something comes down the pipe, this is what you do, right? You adapt and you work it in. So we had normal day, 112, 120 degrees.
Beautiful day in Iraq.
Yes, exactly. Yes, prime heat.
It's 120, but I'm not sweating. How is that possible?
Exactly. It feels great. No humidity. It's awesome. We had been tasked with another mission going out there, so everybody circled up on our team. We had 2 teams tasked with that route security. So it was our team's night to take that billet. So we, gather up, we get our mission notes, chaplain comes over.
So you're traveling along
the road. We set up shop, wait for the call back that the convoy's coming, and then we start re-clearing the road. So we clear it going out.
Was this Michigan or one of the others?
I believe we were on MSR Long Island.
Okay.
When we got hit, so off Michigan.
Michigan is like one of the main thoroughfares
Exactly.
In Al-Anbar province.
We got the word that they were coming back. Hey, go ahead and start clearing the roads so we can make way. So we're traveling, same business, looking out, eyes and ears everywhere.
Just another day, right?
Just another day.
Another boring day.
Right. And everything goes white. Everything.
So, did you hear it?
Didn't hear it.
I mean, thinking back now, I remember so what's the last thing you remember before the boom?
Looking out my window.
Looking out the window.
Looking out the window. NVGs,
Right. So what's the first thing you remember? You're laid out like
right.
this.
I was laid out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was and I had assumed I was in the middle of the road, but I had the doc standing over me, and I don't know, 6, 7, 8 heads looking over me, and just mouths were moving, but I couldn't hear anything.
Right.
Couldn't hear.
It's kind of loud.
Absolutely. That loud ringing, it was tinnitus in its full effect. Could not hear a thing.
So what were your injuries?
So,
by the way, no one died in this, correct?
No.
Nobody died.
I took the brunt.
It was the tire on your side, right?
Right.
The back rear.
The back rear. So right behind my seat was the impact, and they said that what had saved me is that we had, at that time, a new technology source, the Chameleon, and it was heavy and huge, and it took the weight of that, but it was spread out. I think they found the furthest piece about 200 yards away from our vehicle. So that kind of impact, which people are like, how the hell are you even here?
So your injuries were concussive injuries.
Right, concussive. So I had nerve damage to both my shoulders, traumatic brain injury. I was knocked unconscious. So even then, when they're looking at your brain and trying to figure out all those injuries, headaches, memory loss. Even now, going back to their what about this? And I'm like, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't.
Even then there wasn't a lot of talk about TBI
No,
and PTSD.
absolutely not. No, it was just she got knocked out. And that's really, when I look at my...
Rub some dirt on it.
Exactly, right. Rub some dirt, here's a straw, here's some Motrin. You got this. On the casualty report, it was, even then, though I was not a casualty, I was a medical casualty to them. I was ground medevac, so they had listed these, where it was, what kind of injuries, and so they had put on there, all these things. And, going back, nobody thinks about TBI. I wasn't thinking about my brain back then. It was just, and even now to this day,
I kind of feel off a little bit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was blown up. And that's, you know what I mean? And us, we can just say it real easy. People are like, oh my God. And I'm like, it's.
I used to go, when I was in Fallujah, the boneyard for all the vehicles were right there, close to the headquarters, and I'd go by those I know nobody lived through that.
Right.
It's just, it's amazing. So kind of a different subject here, kind of broaden it out a little bit, and I think you're the perfect voice for this, is there's a big push now for women to move into combat arms in the military. So just for our audience, there's combat. You and I were in a combat zone.
Right.
Okay, I was an intelligence officer, you were an MP. Those are not combat arms jobs. Combat arms would be like the infantry, a tank or artillery. So my question to you is, how do you feel about women being in combat arms MOSs?
I do not disagree with it at all, but I also, let me say this. The Marine Corps does not make exceptions on what they require those Marines to do. And if a female can do it without fail, without hesitation, proves that she is physically, mentally, emotionally capable, I'm not against it at all. Now, do I feel that it has to be, something that, and on the articles that I've read, it has to be worked from the top down issue. It has to be a leadership issue. And as an officer, there's a leadership role that comes into play when females are integrating into a male-dominated organization, MOS, billet position. I don't feel that it's something that should be, our females should not be in combat arms. I disagree with that. I feel that just because you're a female doesn't mean that you should do it, because I feel like there's a mentality of, I'm a female and I'm going to do it just to, show that I can. If you're a female Marine and your purpose is to do something bigger than yourself, and that involves being a mortarman or being in the infantry, you've got a lot to fucking prove. You really do. Because I know, as being a small percent, let's face it, 94% male, 6% female, and that has been the average for years and years. You have something to prove. And if you don't, you're going to be the one who fucks everything up. And then it's like, see, this is why we don't.
And we'll put you on the poster for Women's History Month. So I love having this conversation because there's two crazy sides.
Right.
The one crazy side is the military is not an experiment of social change. Okay. Well, the fact that there's women in the military, period, was a social change.
Absolutely.
And they seem to have done pretty well.
Right.
The Tuskegee Airmen, that was a social experiment.
For sure.
Black Americans seem to have done pretty well in this. It's a little different when you talk about, and maybe I'm the old man, get off my lawn. When you start talking about, and I'll just say infantry because that's the hardest. I'm going to give you a hot take, okay, is women and men. When Monica and I wrestle together, I let her win.
Right.
It's more fun that way. But I'm physically stronger than her, so
Sure.
there is a difference there.
There's no doubt that there are
And
physical differences.
So I guess the question is, because there are physical differences, is the juice worth the squeeze to, we send 100 men and 100 women to infantry school, 10% of the men drop out because they physically can't handle it, and pick a number, 40%, 30% women. Is the juice worth the squeeze on that? What do you think?
So I feel like, right, as we've worked up to this, it's, at least you have to say you tried, right? To me, I'm like, you have to try. And that costs the Marine Corps money, not just money, valuable resources here. But I don't think it's something that we should not at least try, because I'm telling you, if anybody can do it, Marines can. So I do think that it's worth a shot, but if there's a consistent high washout rate in females, then they're not cutting it. So pack it up and move on, sis. And I don't feel like the resources and the financial aspect should be wasted on that. That's why I said if a female is deemed worthy and capable on every single level, I don't think it should be an afterthought at all. Now, would I do that? No. Do I like to consider myself a badass? And while I was in, it was constantly proving myself and leveling up, just like I do now as a woman outside of the service. I'm a small percentage. I never wanted to be the one female to be like, oh yeah, she's the one. I wanted to be like, fuck, she's a badass. She comes here, gets her shit done, and does well doing it. So we need more women like her. Not she's here to,
Okay, I know Monica's out there listening, so Shannon and I need to do a podcast on this. Give us about 3 hours and we can go back and forth. But Monica's going to come in a minute, so I want to ask you this last question. Yes. So what would you say to a 17-year-old Shannon out there that went through similar difficulties that you went through as a young lady, and she's thinking of joining the Marine Corps?
I would say, if anything, you're going to find your purpose. And it's up to you, once you find that purpose in the Marine Corps, and I say the Marine Corps because I don't know that any other branch can give that to you, to do the right thing and make the right choices moving forward. Because there's always going to be an inkling to do the wrong thing or make the wrong choice. But I say this, you are going to be scrutinized like no other. So know that you've got to have what it takes to come to the table. The Marine Corps does not compromise their standards. I mean, look at what we've come to now, females in combat roles. They're not compromising. They're saying if you cannot serve equally, you're not going to do it. So I would say if you have the guts to go for it, then go for it. But don't fuck it up. Not for me, not for any other woman that comes behind you either.
You got a great potty mouth to use the F words.
I'm so sorry. I say I'm sorry, but
they need to be.
It's a very passionate situation for me. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's like, I just want to get that point across because it's not funny. You know what I mean? It's a serious situation. Women in combat arms and roles is a big deal.
Right.
And I don't say that because my brothers who are in those roles now would be like, oh, you're just going to send females to say that you did it. Hell no, because I don't want my brothers to the left and the right of you to be compromised. It's not fair.
Right.
So we're not in the business of, oh, let's just do it because it's cool and it's fun and we want to be one of the statistics. You do it because you know you can do it and you can do it equally as well as the brothers to the left and the right of you.
Jeez, you make me want to go and work out. So
I know, let's go lift.
Through the miracle of editing, I'm going to disappear and Monica's going to come in here to wrap it up. So
it's been real.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a veteran now.
We have succeeded.
Yay. So, yes, so glad. Thank you so much to Dave, my husband.
Yes.
Marine Corps.
He's a natural.
He is, and I love the Shannon and Dave show. That'd be great. And I will have to say our director out here is also in the Marine Corps, in Chantry. Chantry Holdman, thank you so much. He is
Yes.
Marine Corps, and he is I'm going to call it a STEMinist, because he is very into STEM and teaching about, whole STEMinist for the Women's History Month,
Yes.
but into drones and teaching kids about technology
cool.
and things. Yeah, so I am so glad Dave did that whole first part. Of course, Chantry and everybody out there could have listened to y'all for another hours and hours.
That's
and,
right. We could have talked for hours.
I know. Y'all should have heard him before we even started rolling. I was like, save that for but I could not have, because, of course, being married to a Marine for 32 years and seeing a bunch of young Marines, I can't take it thinking about you being injured, thinking about, just all the young Marines. I'm like, so I can't talk to her. You're going to have to talk to her. So I appreciate you coming on. So we're going to switch now to kind of a Fast and Furious, sorry, let me fix my headphones here. Fast and Furious ending, because you went from the Marine Corps and all that badassery and still a badass. So it is you, now Dave called it a dress shop, but it's actually a boutique. So
It's all right. We'll let him slide on that one.
let him slide. But as a boutique owner, because I go to your shop all the time for, so we're just going to switch to that. What brought you to Pensacola, and what brought you, real quick, into why fashion, why a boutique?
Gosh, so I met my husband in the Marine Corps, and after our time in San Diego, this was his hometown. So he had the opportunity to move closer. We had kids at the time, so it was just a drive to be closer to family. So he had an opportunity to work alongside his father in the family business. So we took that leap of faith and moved back to his hometown. He wasn't moving to Ohio where there's snow. He's like a part amphibious, right, as we all are.
Well, does he live out at the beach? Or does his family?
No.
Or where in Pensacola?
So in Cantonment, so
Okay.
20 minutes from the beach. He was born and raised here, so he has to be by a body of water. I think for him, it's just good.
Good.
So we moved back here in 2013. At that time, I had worked through my master's in education, so I came here, immediately started teaching jumped into Bailey Middle School almost right away.
Oh, cool.
After I had my daughter here at the NAS Pensacola. Is where
Wait, you were teaching there?
I taught at Bailey Middle School.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Okay.
I think it was in 2014, 15, after I had my daughter.
My daughter used to be an elementary school teacher. but
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, just kind of jumped right into it. It was a open opportunity, and I taught at Bailey Middle School, and then I shifted over to Pine Forest High School. So the boutique thing kind of was a side hustle for me. And I always say, when I first moved here, I struggled with what to buy here. It wasn't like fashion I had seen in San Diego or ever, everything was, and this is no offense, God, I may never live this
No.
down, but it was like, I love Sweet Tea and Jesus and Fringe and Chevron, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is all this? This is so not me. So I had friends who were like, I had shopped with friends who had boutiques, and they're like, just buy some stuff for yourself.
Well,
So
I
on
know
the
when
side.
I go to a boutique for, anything from cocktail attire to business attire to casual attire. I mean, you have everything.
Yeah, we
and
like
even
to-
travel attire. I know I've been in there before. I have to take a conference, and you, from head to toe, I get everything I need for a conference and travel.
Yeah,
So
we like
it
to
is
keep
very cool.
that versatility. And so it was really something that was a side hustle where I just did kind of to help supplement the teacher pay that I was getting, because let's face it, it's not
Yeah.
anything to
Oh,
write
yeah.
home about. We could go on and on about that. But it was just a side hustle that turned into something bigger.
Yeah.
So from pop-ups to a brick and mortar location, that's
Well,
about
and
how it
before
worked
I
out.
tell the location of the store, your website, all of that right now before we forget, because I've forgotten in the past. But what's your location? What's the actual brick and mortar?
So I am at 4273 Woodbine Road in Pace, just outside Pensacola. Y'all don't need a passport to come see me. It's just right across the bridge. We're literally about 10 to 15 minutes outside of Pensacola. I do not have a website. I pride myself on that brick and mortar
Like
experience.
the Facebook, you do a lot of Facebook Lives
Yeah,
and things
so
like that.
on Facebook, I'm just S with the ampersand K boutique. And then on Instagram, I'm shop S and K.
Well, very cool.
So-
So, and Shannon is, I'm going to get into a couple other things real quick, because you just won a Waddy Award, Woman of the
Yes.
Year.
Yeah.
So your Woman of the Year award was for the best damn boutique ever. I think they should call that award that, the best damn boutique ever. So,
New category, let's do it.
I know. So which actually covers from like here to Panama City or something.
Yeah, I think they said all the way out to like Shalimar, where I don't even know
Oh,
where
wow.
Shalimar is. That's so crazy.
Yeah, where's Shalimar? Pass. Anyway, so
Probably-
yeah, it's
past-
a big area.
It's a
that
very
I call.
widespread, and how.
And you won.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
very
one
cool.
of.
And which I could see. I mean, I have my sister and my niece that live in Pace. They shop at your store all the
Yes,
time. So you have
absolutely.
people locally and then all the way to other, this whole area
yeah.
that know you.
Absolutely, I've got ladies that come over from Gulf Shores and Perdido area. So
So yes, you are also not just award-winning for the boutique, but you are in the Crew of SWAT
yes,
and Impact 100 and other things that help raise millions for this community. I mean, y'all have raised thousands and thousands. You'll build houses with Habitat for Humanity. You do diaper drives. I mean, you name it, the crew does everything and raise thousands. And I love everybody on the crew. There's so many of y'all, I don't even know them all, I think. But everybody I know on the crew, I love.
Yes.
And then, of course, Impact, there's now 1,290.
yeah, 1,192 this
Yeah,
year.
92. So we just had a reveal last night. So there, 1,200 plus women that all come together and raise a ton of money, and you're part of that. So it's, but I want to get in this real quick, is you're also the premier presenting title sponsor, however you want to say it, for
Yes.
an upcoming event in 2 weeks, the Art of Fashion.
Yes.
The Art of Fashion raises money for Covenant Care, and I want to mention that because, and for your husband, that was also Marine.
Yes.
Right? But he's a model.
He's a model.
He will
This
be
is his
walking the
second year.
runway.
Yeah, second
Yeah.
year on the runway. Watch
Yeah.
out.
So he was, so a hot Marine walking down the runway, and I would say the second hottest Marine.
That's
so.
right. Yeah. Noted. It's okay. I'll allow it.
I know. So so the Art of Fashion is for Covenant Care. I want to say, because my dad used Covenant Care after he had his heart attack. We used home health and rehab and stuff. So they do a lot more than some people know about. But they are very big into home health care. Anything you need definitely. But this raises money. It's on April 6th, and you have a news flash about it.
Yes, sold out.
Sold out. I was going to say there's like a few tickets left, but it was like they just posted this morning.
Yeah,
Right? Yep.
1,000 seats will be filled.
Yeah, so it is going to be the hottest ticket in town. But I want to mention that they also, this is from Christy, the director. I talked to her, and this is also helping seriously ill children and adults, and their My Wish Foundation type
Yes.
thing. So you're helping out that as being the premier sponsor. So, and did you do it again last year too? Didn't you?
So this is I believe it's my 5th year with Covenant
wow.
Care, but this is the first year that I've been in. That presenting has opened where I've been able to step into that. So every single year that I've been involved with Covenant Care, it's always been my goal to level up my sponsorship. So I finally got to the point where I was like,
You're like, woohoo.
can I get presenting? Can I get presenting? And they're like, no, somebody has to step out, die, or whatever for you to get it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just stand by, right? And then this was the year. So it's humbling, and I'm
I
honored.
can't wait. I literally, I can't wait to see all the fashion. It's Studio 54, so it's going to be a big fashion show for a good cause. But
Yes.
Anything coming up in SWAT that you want to say? Or anything?
Yes, Bread Pudding Bake Off is coming up in May. This Friday we actually have our, which I don't know if the podcast will be out by then, but we've got the Mr. Robbins Neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Who's Your Caddy? This is
Yeah.
the, Marjorie is going to kill me if I mess it up. I think this is the
I don't
3rd year that they're doing it.
At
So
least,
that
at least,
benefits
third or
Mr.
fourth.
Robbins
Yeah.
Neighborhood. Another great local nonprofit helping young athletes, perform to every
Yes,
single
we
level.
all love Tia.
Yes.
Tia and Fred, and that's going to be another great event. Also sold out, I think.
Yes,
She
it's sold out.
Yeah, we had bought 2 tickets. Dave can't do it, so somebody else is doing it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's anyway, a great event for a great cause again. But wanted to actually share another Marine Corps story real quick, and we're wrapping up here. Dave has heard this story, but as you being an MP, when we were stationed in Camp Lejeune, I owned a gym, and I went to the Schwannix, if anybody's ever heard of, I know people have. Went and did a event there, and then some guy was passing out at the table, some guy, a Marine, was passing out at the bar, and I said, just throw him, told the other Marines to throw him in the back of my truck. I'd drop him off at the MP station. So I drive up to the MP station, and literally I walk in and say, somebody come out, y'all come out and get this guy out of my truck. And get him to where he needs to go. So, of course, they come out, and they literally start bashing on this guy because I was an MP. So it was one of their own, and they're like, oh, my God, the lieutenant colonel's wife thought you, we're never going to let you live this down. So, yeah, it was one of those, like, etched in my memory forever.
Probably etched in his as well.
I was like, just get him on my truck, just do something with him. But at least we got him home safe.
Yes.
So anyway, first I want to thank one of my sponsors, Emerald Coast Water. It's also a woman, family-owned, environmentally friendly water bottles and cans. They also have cans, but if you need any water bottles for your events, definitely go check them out. Let's see. What do we have for her? First, I just wanted to thank my husband again. Thank S&K Boutique for supporting Covenant Care, for actually coming in today and talking to me, and we could do this again, I know, for on and on. But
Yes.
and of course, Hellcat Hangar Productions that we were doing the show in, and anything else you want to say, wrap up, that you like?
I'm grateful to be here, and none of this would be I wouldn't be sitting here without the local support. I have to
Yeah.
say that, when great things happen in the community, it's because it's a united effort. S&K wouldn't be what S&K is now without the local support from our community.
Yeah.
So I don't take any of that for granted.
Yeah, and we've gotten little Christmas gifts from you, because you also have,
I do. I have little gift items.
little gift items
I'm
and
not a full
stuff.
gift store. Our bread and butter are closed, but we've got some hilarious mugs, some
yeah, I was going to
hilarious
say
socks.
the hilarious mug. I
Yeah,
can't
so-
remember, I've gotten quite a few from there, and
Yes.
send them to my
Yep.
daughter, and send them to places, because they are hilarious.
Yes,
But,
if you're looking for a little happy or a hostess gift or a little gift, we've got you covered there. And there's nothing better than supporting local. I'll
Yes,
say that.
definitely go support local. And I just want to tell her one more time, love that you came on for Women's Health Month. Couldn't have picked a better person. I'm like going to get choked up just saying it. When you first said yes, I'm like, oh my God. So
I wish you would have, I mean, whenever it was put on your heart, I wish you would have asked me then, because
Well,
I'm
because I
not,
wanted to for a while, and I'm like, and then this came, I was like, this is perfect, but I can't talk to her, so.
Right.
But everything y'all talked about, we loved, and we have to do it again.
yes,
So.
anytime.
Love
Just
you.
let me
So,
know. Love
thank you so
too.
much for listening in to the Monica Sanford Show, and stay tuned for the next show in April, and thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.